welcome to How We Innovate at Arizona State University. My name is Brent Siebold. I am the co-host here along with my friend and longtime collaborator, Michael Hool.
Great to be here again.
He's back. He's back for more. We're really excited because we have two of our amazing student founders from our Masters of Science in Innovation and Venture Development program. Isaac is here. Isaac, good to see you.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you in the studio. You're looking very dapper in your E&I polo shirt.
Yeah.
Go Devils. And Zafira, one of your fellow cohort mates. Zafira, hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Great.
Excited to be here.
All right, Michael, we got the A-team in the house. The star of our show today is actually going to be this guy, my co-host, Michael Hool. He's been doing venture development support for, 2 decades?
Long time.
Yeah, long time.
30 years.
Longer than us.
Yeah.
We're relative neophytes in this regard of creating new products, new services, new ways of making people's lives better. So it's an exciting time of year here at the university. We're coming up on the end of our academic year, and this is where we have a lot of our culminating experiences within the venture development space, including the MSIVD program, as well as the Venture Devils program, which serves the entire university, not only undergrads, but graduate students, even faculty and staff. Anybody affiliated with the university can be part of Venture Devils, which is this massive league of practicing entrepreneurs. So we have we have our demo day coming up very shortly with that program. And then we have showcase events that folks like Michael Hool and John Corey and others are looking for very specific types of scalable tech ventures. So within the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering, we've created the Hool Curry Law Tech Venture Challenge. And so, Michael, you're going to be hosting and judging and doling out, all told, $50K is going to go out to some of our ASU-affiliated founders in a week's time.
Yep.
So with our two founders here who are actually in the running for that $50K, along with, I think it's almost $500K in additional seed grant funding, you all are participating in several pitch events over the next coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So congratulations.
Yeah, and I can give you a little bit more background history on, getting to the point where we have the Hool Curry Law.
Yeah, please do.
Challenge.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
So, as Brett said, I was working in helping, support just about anything that deals with launching companies, primarily around capital formation. And so, in the early days, it was actually pre-Venture Devils. We started some competitions, and from there, I helped support all the different things that were going on with what is now Venture Devils, and putting up some prize money, judging, supplying expertise with different judges, bringing them in. And one of the things that I was focused on is trying to provide some sort of segue between some of the markets I work in with the investors, like Silicon Valley, for example, right? And it's evolved over time, but back then, there really wasn't much of connectivity. And so I was doing a lot of things trying to connect startups out here to things that were going on in other areas where they had more capital or it was flowing freer. And I started getting feedback from the investors, and they said, do you have any engineers? Do you have any engineering startups? Like we have a preference for engineers. So that's how I hooked up with Brent, and so that's how we focus now. There's a lot of things going on. Venture Devils doing great things. There's a lot of stuff. The business school and like all these others are participating. So why not have a niche and be focused with startups that have some kind of engineering connectivity. So that's how we got to this spot.
Yeah, that's great historical context. I bet you guys didn't even know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Brand new. We've been at this for quite some time. And in fact, to Michael's point, if you look at the total population of practicing entrepreneurs within the ASU ecosystem alone, over half of the practicing founders hail from the Fulton Schools of Engineering. What's interesting is even if you're studying engineering, a lot of our engineering students are doing traditional Main Street business startups. fact, one of my students this semester is a computer science undergrad, and she's doing a baking company. So our position at ASU, and specifically within engineering, is that if you're interested in creating value, certainly Michael and his contacts in Silicon Valley and New York and Boston, everywhere else, they're looking for those technology solutions that can really create a 10x impact in society and a 10x return on investment. But really, we know that the economy, over half of the economy, is built on the back of traditional Main Street businesses. So we preach here at ASU this idea of having an entrepreneurial mindset. So if you're working in a career and you've got your day job, that's great. You can continue to create value beyond at work and beyond work by doing a side hustle, creating a startup, all of these various things, and it's super rewarding to see our students start these pursuits like you two have while you're earning an undergraduate degree and now a graduate degree. And I know both of these students started dabbling in the world of startups and entrepreneurship as undergrads, and are just continuing that to push that forward as grads, and certainly as professionals as well.
Is the startup you're working on now your first one, or did you try other ideas?
No, I tried other ideas. I had an idea in Brent's class. I had an idea in one of my other classes. So I tried a few in undergrad, and then when I started my master's program, it was completely different. So I've tried a few. Yeah.
So you just throw those aside and say, "This is the one. I landed on it." Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a "this is the one" feeling, but the other ones, they didn't feel as good as this one.
Yeah.
Every startup I try, it's always like, this is the one.
Yeah.
I can't wait
At
to.
first it is,
It's gonna be big.
Yeah.
It's gonna be big.
How about you,
My
Isaac?
first official LLC, first official go out of business. But since I was a little kid selling Pokemon cards, I've been trying to
See,
So you're
that's
on
the
a
side
business,
hustle,
but-
yeah. Creating value with Pokemon. No,
Yeah.
that's how a lot of people start. I mean, that's great.
One of the things that that you learn as you try different ventures and stuff, and you get advice from people who have done it before. So everything I say is stuff I picked up along the way. But you start to make decisions around, is this thing going to make money, and how hard is it going to be to make money compared to doing something else? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of cool ideas that solve problems, but there may not be a big market for it. Mm-hmm. And so, you have to decide, is this my passion that I don't really care how much money I make, or am I trying to grow something really big? If you're trying to grow something really big, you absolutely have to start making decisions to go after markets that are big, not just having a cool product. So anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a key point of the iterative process of problem, solution, business model, ultimately scale, right? And you're going through both theoretically and practically those steps within your master's program. And along the way, if you do find that you are solving a problem or creating value within a domain that you really care about and you're passionate about, and the market is big enough, at some point, whether it's early in the process or at some stage of the game, you might realize, hey, in order for me to move faster in terms of delivering my product, my service, my value to the people that I'm trying to help, it becomes clear that you need other people's help. You need folks to come in and help with, you mentioned setting up an LLC, other resources you might need to formalize your operation, to help bring on freelancers to help create the initial prototype, to initially go to market. So then you get to this point where you realize, hey, maybe I can go out and solicit the support of people that can pour some gasoline on my kindling fire that I started in class or in an accelerator or just in my garage or my spare room. I was going to say basement, but we don't have basements out here.
I do. I have a basement.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
He's one of the lucky few.
Yeah.
Anywhere you're starting that initial, product, service, design, we get to this point, and this is something we have a lot of fun doing here at Arizona State, is we provide opportunities for students to interact with people like Michael, supporters of early stage startups. And so most traditionally, Michael already hinted to this, those forums that we create to ask for that next layer of support, usually financial support, are gatherings that are typically called demo days. So these are opportunities for entrepreneurs to present what they're doing in a pretty standard way. So prior to this, and in addition to this, I should say, there's also opportunities that we kind of coach you all to be prepared for, to just share what you're working on in a very quick, rapid fire way. And we oftentimes these are referred to as elevator pitches, or networking. Kind of. I don't know. What do you call them? Anything else besides elevator pitches?
No, I think that's kind of captures it. I mean, you're talking about like 1 minute or less,
Right.
and it's really, around being prepared to get the most important information across that will attract somebody to be interested in your company. You're not going to get an investment on a 1 minute thing, but you're going to pique their interest, right? And so, you have to be, as an entrepreneur, everywhere you go, you have to have that. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't know when the situation will arise. So I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs over the years where, just the craziest fortuitous things happen. Like, you run into your biggest investor at a bonfire that you didn't even want to go to because you didn't have time to go. And all of a sudden, holy crap. And he's asking me these questions. And it's like, anyway, you just got to be prepared. So on the pitch stuff, I think what I always recommend is don't be so focused just on, like, for ours, we have a 5-minute pitch. And certainly right before that, you want to work on that 5 minute and make sure you have the 5 minute. But the best, there's a couple entrepreneurs that I know that I've done different travels to investment bankers, investors, and you have to have a pitch for every time slot. In other words, you have to have a 1 minute pitch, 5 minute pitch, 10-minute pitch, 20-minute pitch. And you sit down, and so I remember doing a tour in London, talking to investors with a client, and the first thing you'd do is you'd sit down, we'd get into the room, because they schedule these back to back to back, these financial sources, they're just looking at companies all day long. And he'd sit down and go, how much time do we have? He'd ask the guy, how much time do we have? So he knew which pitch to go to. And so you don't want to waste time. If you only have 5 minutes, you don't want to be giving them the 20-minute pitch, because you won't even get to some of the good stuff. So I just think you need to be flexible. You just got to know everything about your company, and be ready to give a big one, short one. It doesn't matter based on the context.
Yeah.
So
it's great advice, having those various versions. So I know some of our audience is probably wondering, hey, got some cool, early stage founders on the show here today. So you two had a great opportunity to go as part of a sponsored retreat we do every spring called Tech Devils. This time we went to Los Angeles, California. We have a home base there. ASU has the California Center in LA. So you two went and you did some networking, you did some pitching. I'm curious, either prior to, during, or after that trip, did you have an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and your venture in a very concise way? And if so, maybe you could share that with Michael, just to refresh his memory of what you're working on, and the audience as well. Yeah. So do you remember having one of those exchanges?
I don't think I had one in LA. Yeah, I don't think I had one there, but I can give you one.
Yeah, let's hear it, yeah.
So I'm working on a company called Thrively Foods, and it's an innovative food and beverage company. We're focused on developing innovative food and beverage products with an initial focus in the coffee industry. And our first product is foam, which is a ready-to-use cold foam.
So. Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's good. I mean,
I don't know if it gets everything across, but...
No, I thought what I appreciated that oftentimes I'm trying to correct and coach some of your classmates on is you called it a company right out of the gate, which in the ecosystem of ASU, that's a big deal, right? Understanding that it's not a project, it's not a hobby. You are building a company that ultimately over time is going to become a business and create value.
Yeah.
So that was good.
And if you have a product, especially if you have limited time, and I like that you kind of saved it to the end, really, your foam product. But that's the most important thing to get across. So people,
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not the overall most important thing saying you're going to get money, but to get someone to understand what you do and what you're selling, like, you got to get that across no matter what.
Yeah.
Right up front, somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, it's really important because I've been on a lot of panels and the judges are like, when we get back into judge, they go, wow, that was great, but I just don't know what the heck they do.
Yeah.
I don't know what they make. I don't really understand it. And it's like, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the company could have been great. We just didn't get the product out. The product's the star, man. Get the
Yeah.
product out there.
Okay.
But great job. I mean, that was
Yeah.
awesome. I kind of I'm putting both of you on the spot.
Ah,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you, Isaac, for
Yeah.
for rolling with the punches. That was a great example.
Thanks.
Good
Yeah.
work. Zafira, you want to
Yeah.
share? Did this happen recently in real life, or
When I was in LA, I used it informally because the environment we were in, it was more like, "Hi, who are you? But what are you working on right now?" So it was the response I gave to a lot of people. But I said that I'm working on a company called Food Tracks, which is a food truck tracking service in the form of a mobile application. It helps everyday consumers get access to trucks' menus, schedules, and reviews all in one place.
Good.
mic drop?
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, you can tell she definitely said that a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about, it's more nuanced, but if you want to take it to the next level, start thinking of what environments you might be in to say this. Because, like, you'll be in all different kinds of environments. Some places will be quiet. Some places will be noisy. You'll be jostled around. There'll be conversations going on. I mean, you just got to roll with the flow and be prepared in each one of those situations. You may have to speak louder. You know, you just have to think of that stuff. So, anyway, I think that's the next level of having a really good elevator pitch doesn't work if they can't hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, great examples, great tips, Michael, as always. So for those of you watching or listening at home, you know, kind of in the classroom side of our venture development ecosystem at ASU, we actually provide a lot of our founders with a template for this 1 minute or 30-second version of your elevator pitch. And we'll get into this when we start talking about preparing for a 5-minute presentation that you'll do very soon, and Michael will be judging very soon. But the template, for those of you that are interested in crafting your own 30-second intro, like you just heard from Isaac and Zafira, is we sell this product or service to this customer who wants this benefit. And within that template, I heard both of you check each one of those 3 boxes very well. To Michael's point, Isaac, you'd flipped it just a little bit, which
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think
yeah, you got it across.
there's a lot to be said for authenticity and just being kind of working what your company does and what your company wants to do into a very natural cadence of conversation. I mean, that's what gets people every time. And that's what we talk about with pitching, is like telling your story, right? In a visual way and via a narrative is oftentimes clearly is very important, even beyond the technical aspects. But
Yeah, and I'd say a couple things popped into my head. One is if you're pitching at an event like this coming up, learn the rules before you go there so you know what you're allowed to do. So, and by this I mean, if you have a product company, you have a little cool product, find out if you're allowed to show your product. Because some places don't allow you to.
who wouldn't allow this?
Oh, depends on how much time you have. No, I mean...
Depends on how big your product is, I guess.
Well, no, I've been at some where they just say, no, we're not going to... They just blanket because
Wow.
some people abuse it and they're like passing out products to
Oh, I
everybody.
see.
And,
Okay.
anyway, but if you have a product, it's really important to show the product. If you have it. It may be on the drawing board or whatever, but you just got to, whatever the best you have, bring out your best, right?
Yeah.
It's a Clydesdale. Have your Clydesdale run out.
Like that.
The other thing I was thinking on practicing your pitch, not just practicing it, but it's sort of like foreign languages. You can speak the language that you're learning the best, when you're among the people that are speaking it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So in my early days, I did a lot of, just because I was hooked on it and I had a lot of friends that were starting companies, mostly in Silicon Valley, but a lot of networking events where, it was around something where there were venture capitalists and investors and all these other startups from all over. And take advantage of just the cocktail time or whatever it is where everybody's mixing it up and just move around the room and talk to people and practice telling them what you do. And they do that to you. And it's like, it's really cool. Some of them will be investors and some of them will be just other entrepreneurs. But if you can go into an environment like that with 100 people in a room and you're bouncing around telling your story over and over and over again, you're going to get really good at it. So,
I mean, you bring up a good point. Another challenge we have as innovators is our ego getting in the way of this type of practicing that Michael is describing, especially at the university level. A lot of first-time entrepreneurs, a lot of students, even myself, my ego will get in the way of me being, cavalier about sharing what it is that I'm working on with oftentimes complete strangers. It's often easier to have this conversation with strangers, but it's a big deal to take what's in your head, get it down on paper, like most entrepreneurs do, is a good first step, and then be able to share that with as wide of an audience as possible. So if you're concerned about, your ego being bruised about talking about this crazy new foam product you're developing or this crazy new app that, that'll never work, that's a good indication that you might actually be tackling a problem that you don't actually care about, right? So this is a fundamental step in the process. Am I so confident about my abilities to solve this problem that I don't care what people say? I'm going to go out and tell people and engage their reaction, get feedback, and potentially lead into a follow-on conversation. But if you're feeling unsure about that, my best advice to you and to anybody is to go back to step one, is do you truly care about this? Because if you do, it's a lot easier to kind of come out and talk about why you're so excited. So one last thing I want to say, and then we can get into maybe the structure of what you're expecting to see in your forum of new venture presentations. There is an alternate template for that 1 minute introductory sentence, which is typically, or paragraph, which is not typically accompanied by slides. So if you're networking, as Michael was describing, it's not like you have a stack of brochures in one hand, or even oftentimes your business cards are typically passé in some cases with everything going digital. But you're not giving this one sentence or 30-second to a minute with any props, so to speak, other than maybe something. You're generally not showing anything, right? So it's really about the clarity of your message in a very concise form. So to expand on the template I gave everybody earlier, you could take it one step further. You could say, we sell this product or service to this customer who wants this benefit. Unlike these others that you might know about, because as you say that first sentence, the audience is probably thinking, oh, well, there's a million people that do that. Unlike this name brand competitor, we do this differently. And it's an opportunity for you to introduce the most important part oftentimes of any pitch, which is the unique value proposition. What is it that you do better than anybody else? And this will feed into our conversation about a competitive analysis and showing your unique value proposition within the marketplace. But one more time, this is my opportunity to teach on our podcast. We sell this product or service to this customer archetype who wants this benefit, your number one feature. Unlike this name brand competitor, we do this way better. Got it?
Got it.
These guys don't need it, but if you're new to this stuff out in the audience, it's an easy kind of Mad Lib you can use to kind of plug in what's on your napkin right now or what's in your first draft of your pitch deck. Goes right into that Mad Lib. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah, I was just thinking, don't be afraid to be a little eccentric. In other words, And this, there's a fine line, and who knows, but like, I remember one company, he had software for lawyers, but it was pre all this AI that's out here now. But he had a big sign over his booth that said, "My other lawyer is a robot." Oh. And so it's just curious. It made you want to say, "What are you talking about? And tell me about that." Yeah. And but it's just trying to get something out there to pique someone's interest to talk to you. There was a guy that had a T-shirt on that he was a Russian guy, and he didn't speak very good English, but he had a big T-shirt on that said, "We manage your grandmother," or "We manage grandmother," or something like that. And it's, like when he's walking around, and before he did his pitch, he's wearing this shirt, and then he gets up there and he starts talking. And it turns out all he did was he had an app that constantly. This was like 15 years ago, so you got to date it, right? Technology is way better. Mm-hmm. But it would automatically send photos of your kids, the grandkids, out to grandma and grandpa every day. It would systematically send them photos. Aww. So they didn't have to bother, and they knew what was going on with their grandkids. Yeah. And like he's talking to this panel of VCs, and like the shirt thing didn't seem to tie in what he's talking about. It's not all that exciting. And they're all kind of like, like me when I have allergies. Your eyes are kind of closed and you're talking.
Oh, allergies.
They're not paying great attention to them. And then one guy goes, there's a lot of this stuff out there. And what you really need to have, you need to get started and get a lot of users, because that's the only thing that's going to attract people's attention. So one guy on the panel looks at him and goes, "How many users do you have?" And he goes, 90 million.
Oh my God.
He conquered Russia and a couple other countries, and he was coming to the United States. And then all instantly, they peaked. It's like, holy crap, he's onto something here. Yeah. And it's like, I guess there's a market for grandmas to see their grandkids every day if they're far apart. Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of cool.
That's a great lesson that we talk about in studio and in class all the time, of this concept of leading with traction, if you have it. And in the story that Michael just told, it sounds like that founder did have it. So imagine had he shared really early in the presentation the fact that they had 90 million
Seems like
users.
Came up at some point.
Right? So the shock value
I
would
guess
have been lost.
True.
So one of the best startup coaches that I follow, that's his mantra is lead with traction. De-risk what you're about to say as early as you can, whether it's your expertise as a barista, you want to move that up, right? Yeah. I know this market because I've been doing it forever. Or your expertise in the realm of food connoisseuring. I don't even know if that's a thing, but or you've got traction in terms of your product, your team is really strong, whatever it is that you can kind of say that's going to blow back people's hair and get their ears and their eyes, focused. Then you're not missing that. In this guy's case, it sounded like the first 3 minutes of the presentation, they had to go back and be like, "Oh, what? Remind me what you said."
He was just talking about, exactly. They went back and then they wanted to hear it again because they weren't paying attention before.
So lead with traction is a key. So let's segue then into, if in most cases, especially here at ASU, we're going to give you 5 minutes to ask for support, whether that's financial support in the form of non-dilutive seed grants. That's typically, at least in my office, that's what we deal with most commonly. Or if you're asking for, outside of ASU, maybe you're asking for friends and family support or angel investor support, dilutive capital if they're giving you a loan, or they want to take a little bit of equity from your company to give you the cash you need to get to your next milestone. But in all of these scenarios, the 5-minute presentation is typically the vehicle by which you get that initial kind of negotiation process started. Is this venture worth, a segment of my gift money that I've made available, or my investment capital that I have within my portfolio that I want to kind of roll the dice on and hopefully get a bigger return? So within the 5 minutes, I'm just going to kind of preview the basically the chapters of that 5-minute presentation. It typically starts with problem or opportunity, and who has it, why you care, and maybe how big is that problem zoomed out from you and the people that you're trying to help, right? So problem, solution would be the next. Here's the problem. Here's how I'm going to solve it. And then we go into, from a solution, you can look at how your solution stacks up with other available solutions within the market, the competitive analysis. Once we understand that your solution is cooler or better, then we can look at, okay, if I'm going to want to use that or pay for it, how much is it? What is the business model, right? And then if the business model makes sense, the next thing is, how can I replicate that sales process? How do I bring it to more people within the market? So it's a go-to-market strategy. And then from there, once I understand, I believe that, hey, this strategy to bring it more people, either locally or digitally or however, who's going to execute on that plan? So typically the team will be introduced after the go-to-market strategy. And then from there, once I have confidence that the team is legit, then I can I'm ready to say, I loved your story up to this point, but what do you need from me to be successful? So then it's the ask. You ask for a certain amount of money or resources to get to the next step, and then you show, if you give me this, here's how I'm going to use it to get to where I want to go. So that can be a conversation about the return on investment or use of funds or the budget, the pro formas in certain scenarios. And then very briefly, it's kind of teeing up the question and answer dialogue.
Yeah, I think the other thing, you have to figure out how, and there's several ways to do it, but you have to give the audience, the investors, a sense of the market for sure. Like, how big is this opportunity? So, and it has to be credible. Like, you can't just, it doesn't work to say you cite some Forrester study or whatever they are, and say the market's $10 billion and we think we're going to get 10% of the market, therefore that's our revenue. It's like, well, what makes you think you're going to get 10% of the market? You got to build it from the ground up, and you don't really have a lot of time in a short pitch like that. But I say don't forget to mention how big the market is, or that we're not just talking about something small here. You got to figure out how to get that in there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways to do it. Like there was a device company that they didn't even talk about the market that much. They just said the market's so big, the federal government invested $1 billion giving grants away for this specific problem last year. And it's like, what? They're pouring that money into that's a big problem. Yeah. So like I'm playing in a so they didn't even have to lay out all the traditional stuff. That just gave people a sense of, man, this is pretty big. The government's spending $1 billion on this one problem right now. So anyway, there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think you need to do that. The other thing I would say is, whenever I'm on panels, this is pretty consistent. The judges really appreciate somehow, some way, you getting across who you are, your story, what motivated you, how you got to this idea. Like, just that makes a difference. I mean, because they're people, and they get excited about people that are doing cool things, and like, how did they come upon that? That's really cool. Mm-hmm. And especially if it's something you discovered along the way that was a problem, you go, I'm sick and tired of this problem, I'm going to fix it. Mm-hmm. And then you just come up with the solution, and then you find out, wow, there's a market for this, I could sell this. But those are compelling stories. So these are all little things that are valuable to you, and you have to figure out which ones are most valuable, get them in there. But I think the basic things that Brent mentioned are critical, and I'd say figure out a way to weave in your story of how you came upon this idea, or who you are, or what, I'm a third generation immigrant family that we had this and we didn't have this, and whatever it is.
No, I'm so glad you reinforced those 2 points, because when I teach this kind of framework of telling this narrative in a 5-minute pitch format, I actually call those 2 points that you brought up the foundation of the entire 5 minutes. So what Michael just raised are key components of that very first minute, at the most minute and a half within that 5-minute time constraint. So let's look at YouTube for an example, right? So if we're going to start the 5-minute pitch, what is the problem? Who has it? Why do you care? And then maybe in whatever order you choose, why do I care? And then now that I know who has the problem, to Michael's point, how big is this? How many other people have this problem, right? Is it a growing trend among this person I just told you about, to they're going to want to solve this problem more and more as time goes on. Technological factors and societal factors might influence how that market grows or shrinks.
Yeah, you're just giving a sense in the life cycle of a startup in raising capital. The early pitches have less metrics. The later pitches have more metrics.
Yeah.
They matter more. So you don't want to get bogged down in metrics, but you do want to give a sense of this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And just like don't get bogged down in too many of the metrics, because your metrics aren't going to be believable anyway. I mean,
unless you have 90 million users.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, if you got that kind of traction. So I had a guy that I went to an angel group. He was a company I was helping. And he comes right out, and the first thing he said is, "We're crushing it." And he lays up their sales like growth in the last. And that was the start of it.
That
the
was
first
the start.
slide
See?
is, "We're
Lead with
crushing
traction.
it. We're crushing it."
And then when that slide comes up, you're like, "Oh, I'm listening. You tell me
These
more.
guys
How are
must
you
have
crushing
discovered
it?"
something? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, Sophia. So what do you got? Walk us through your first minute.
My first minute, I usually open up with my story.
Oh,
So do you
okay.
want me to?
Yeah, just paraphrase if you don't mind.
Okay. I talk about how my friend Omar and I had gotten out of class, and he had been telling me about this food truck he went to a few days before, and he said it's really, really good. Let's walk there. And it was during the summer too, so we walked a mile and a half to where he thought it was, but it wasn't there. And
brutal.
so we tried Googling it, but nothing came up, and that's when I realized that this is a problem that people experience and there's not a solution for it. So that's kind of what I open up with.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So the problem is finding food trucks. The people you're trying to help are yourself and Omar, right? And then how many other people do you suppose are having this problem on a daily basis?
So,
God forbid in Phoenix during the summer.
Yeah, I know. So the stat I follow up with is that, and it's from my own interviews I've done because I've done a few hundred now, is that 67% of consumers discover mobile food vendors by chance. And so that's what I follow up with. And then my market slide is actually a little bit later, but I mean the TAM or the overall industry is a $1.2 billion industry.
Okay. So doing the back of the napkin math, you're basically saying, half of civilization has this problem, basically, right? So 3 billion. Sorry, maybe my math was a little obtuse on that one, but good.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add or critique on that? I think that's a...
No, I mean, you're conveying who you are and how you came up with the idea. So I think that's good. I mean, it's valuable to know.
I think
that.
it also depends on who you're pitching to and
Yeah.
tailoring your pitch to, because in the New Venture Challenge class that I'm in, we're always talking to like angel investors or people that are more concerned with your numbers or more interested in hearing about those metrics than venture devils, where they're more interested in your problem and solution. Well, angel investors are interested in those too, but they want to see your overhead costs, your
So are you
projected
hearing from
revenue.
those coaches and those investors that even though you're pre-revenue, they're wanting to hear that as quickly as possible? Your projections, am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, they want to see a lot of numbers, especially like customer acquisition.
Within the first minute.
Well, I mean, within the pitch in general,
okay.
more so. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of
Let's get
myself.
there. But no, I mean, I'm glad you're bringing it up because you're the point I think Isaac is driving home here is that as we're talking about these different things, it is a key, part of the process to determine, hey, what aspects do I need to beef up within my presentation and which do I need to minimize depending on who the audience is. But before we get to your pro formas, which not everybody has.
I'm still pre-revenue, so I don't even have a lot of those.
Right, but you're being asked by these people to, based on what you know from the market, right? Based on your 100+ interviews you've done so far, you can make we call it swag. You can make a swag guess.
Yeah.
Scientific wild ass guess about what these numbers will look like.
Yeah.
Once you do raise the capital needed to go on your first go to market run. So let's because again, this is the foundation. The audience wants to know.
Right.
What does your first minute of your slide deck sound like?
Yeah. So I introduced the problem quickly and why I know about it and how I experienced it, because as being a barista, I got to experience all the issues that come with that. which really trickled down to the end consumer. Because if you're waiting in a long line, there's reasons that you're waiting in that line, and that's why it's not going through quickly. And so identifying one of those key factors, which was cold foam, and I found that out by working there, and addressing on how to solve that issue. And so that's really what I bring up in the first minute. That's after introducing the company and everything. That's what I drill into there.
That's awesome. And you guys are and you're supplementing your stories with visuals, right?
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
slides, right? So it's right out of the gate. It's not it's not pro formas. It's not your 67% stat. You're introducing yourself in the context of being an expert of this problem, and then you're introducing potentially first user or payer, right? You're introducing somebody who's fed up, right, with standing in line or paying these exorbitant prices at these chain coffee stores as being an actor within the story of how do we make people's lives better, right? I've seen your slides. I know you're doing this already, but I think Michael.
He should just give all your pitches.
Yeah.
Well, believe
He knows
me,
all your
I've
stories.
I've intervened on this a couple of times before today's session, but Michael, I'd love to hear your opinion because these two founders know my opinion on this. I think establishing that emotional connection with the person you're trying to help, and like you said, Michael, with the founders, is super important. But do you agree with kind of being brought into meeting an archetypical user or payer at the outset of the pitch? Do you think that's an important step? In the
Well, you
process?
mean like conveying to the audience what your target customer is? Okay. Yeah. That's obviously important, I think. It's just there's probably 100 ways to do that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say, do it this way, do it that way. But it's sort of like pornography, right? You can't define it, but you know it when you see it. So it's like, that's pornography, but don't ask me what is pornography because I won't know. So if you succeed at it, people will recognize it. But I can't tell you exactly how to do it. But you got to be intentional about it. And the other thing is, with all this stuff, and I think this is a mistake a lot of entrepreneurs do, because you have a short window, and we're talking about all the things you got to convey. You got to figure out how to get up there and relax. Just relax. Don't seem all uptight. Just relax. Look at people in the eyes and tell them your story. It's your story. You own it. So, just relax. They'll get drawn in that way. If you're up there and you're not even looking at them and you're just cranking and making sure you hit your slides, they're going to be looking at their phones and everything. But if you communicate with them and come on, man, I'm telling you my story right now.
Yeah.
So I just think that's powerful when people do that. So
That's a really good point. And if you need help relaxing, there's
got the Hool.
There's a product on the market that will stimulate your vagus nerve.
We should pass them around beforehand.
This is great for entrepreneurs. So your vagus nerve runs along your neck, and if you stimulate it, you'll instantly
It
calm
lowers
down.
everything down to baseline. You're just it's like taking a drug.
That's interesting. Is
Except
this
it wears off in
how does it work?
It's like
Electrical pulse or something, or
it triggers the body's natural response. There's a scientific term for it, but that nerve stimulates how your blood pressure and heart rate and everything interact with each other, so it calms you down.
on the bottom.
I use it all the time when I give public speaking.
How does it stimulate it though?
It vibrates.
It's electrical.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's an electrical stimulator. Touch it, and it just feels like a little vibration. But it's
Full disclosure.
yeah, it's.
Is that
We're making a pitch for.
It's
your
my son's company.
products? Yeah.
Oh, really?
I've
But
seen it.
I didn't do it. You started it, so I
No,
I
he's
believe
great.
in
Pretty
it.
cool.
Yeah. No. I mean,
I use it all the time. So
yeah.
It's
the,
great
the
for
scroll
pitches.
along
That's
the
what I
bottom
said.
of our screen. HoolisPT.com.
brought to you by Hool's PT.
So yeah, well, little aside, but to Michael's point, I think really what you're getting to here is authenticity, right? If you truly care about solving this problem, you care about the people within the market you're going to help with your solution. I think that that natural approach to your pitch is going to come through, and I think both these two founders have that. And it's practice. Let's be real. I mean, the more times you deliver your 1 minute kind of networking elevator pitch, And the more times you stand up in front of a room, whether it's 5 people or 50 people, it's going to continue to just build your confidence and so on and so forth. Good. So we covered. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this is kind of a there's all these components, but as a judge, number one, I like to feel that you just, it has to come across somehow that you're committed. You're committed to your company.
Mm-hmm.
So like when shit hits the fan, you're not going to just go do something else.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm doing this. Like
Yeah.
I'm passionate about this. I'm doing it. So that has to come across. However it happens for you, because people have different energy levels and everything. But I think that's really important. And just making sure that you're gonna whatever stage you're at right now, you are going to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter how you have to get there.
Yeah.
So that has to come across because that's powerful.
I think in my earlier pitches, I was like running through it quick. I was like,
Yeah.
super nervous and
Yeah.
not really engaging with the audience. And when I pitched my first Venture Devils competition last year, I went up and I spoke and I thought, okay, I could have had a lot more energy. And especially after seeing the other pitches, there's people jumping around, like, Shark Tank type stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm out. Like, there's no way I'm going to compete with them. And then I ended up winning at that competition, and the judges on the panel came up to me afterwards saying that they appreciated my genuine
Good
interest in the problem. And so
Yeah.
I think having that genuine knowledge and passion for it comes across, even if you're not super eccentric or like
Yeah.
jumping around, So
Yeah.
I think that helped actually.
Yeah.
That's why engineers
Go with your own
do
style.
great in these competitions, right? They might not be wired to be the talker like I am as a business major, but they understand the problem. They understand the technical solution, and the communication is when it's clear and even and concise. That's all.
So a follow-up question there. When you're hearing pitches, especially for, let's say, like early pre-revenue startups, what is the ratio there for, the way you present yourself, the confidence, and the way you talk, and then the actual content? Or is it just about half and half?
Well, it's all content, but I mean, they both happen at the same time, right? Because you're presenting. So you have a persona, and how are people perceiving you? And so that's why I think you got to exude confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, let me back up a little bit. You got to exude confidence and character. So for me and people that I know, like, is this the kind of person that's hiding something, or are they coming clean? Like literally, companies present and they make it sound like everything's great, but the reality is they don't have half this stuff, and they just don't tell the truth. And so it means a lot to investors
really
if you
good point.
say, here, we got all this stuff we need to, but here's what we need to get there, and we don't have this spot filled yet, but when we get funding, we're going to get that spot filled.
Yeah.
Like, that's reality.
Yeah.
But a lot of people brush over that and act like it's cool, it's not an issue for us. And when you find out that later as an investor, it's like, man, I don't even want to talk to these people anymore.
Yeah.
So they want to know they're dealing with someone of character.
Yeah.
So you got to demonstrate that somehow. And the best way I can think of to demonstrate it, which kind of gets to your competence and your expertise in your field, is you got to recognize where you have a few issues or blind spots or weaknesses, but have an answer to that, right? Like we don't have this and this, but here's how we're handling that. Like so that way you're coming clean with the weakness, but you're demonstrating competence that you've thought it through, and we have a plan.
Yeah.
So.
That's great.
Another thing is you can always plan for the pitch, and you practice it over and over again, but you can't always practice for all the questions you're being asked. So if you come off, and a lot of those pitches during the last Venture Devils were like super excited, outgoing, fast, like good pitches, but then when it came to the questionnaire, a lot of them struggled because they couldn't practice for that.
Yeah.
So that came through.
Yeah, on the Q&A thing, I don't know if it matters that much in what you're doing, but when you're asking for money, for example, even if you're not asking for money, how much money is it going to take for you to get to A to B? like you have to give them a number. Like do not demonstrate any kind of weakness around knowing what your number is. Like if you don't know what your number is, then nobody knows what your number is. Don't give a range. I mean, a range is ridiculous. What's your valuation? It's somewhere between this and that. It's like, I don't even want to talk to that guy. Just because, I mean, valuation's negotiable, but come out with this is my number. This is what I'm worth. This is how much money I'm raising. Like, be definitive.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that's what's going to stand, but you've got to drive, you got to drive it home that I know my company more than anybody else, and here's the number.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fudge on it. So,
No, that's a great tip. Michael skipped ahead to his favorite part, which is the ask.
yeah, we can go back.
No, it's great. And actually, we're running out of time, so we won't be able to get through every segment of a traditional 5-minute pitch. But I do want to kind of circle back and, say that in the opening salvo, you've got the problem, you've got the solution, which we haven't talked about yet, and then the competitive analysis, which is a key spot where you can introduce your core competency or your unique value proposition. And if you remember back to the elevator pitch template, we sell this product to this customer. That's the solution and problem kind of flip-flopped. Who wants this benefit? That's your unique value proposition coupled with the competitive analysis. Unlike these competitors, we do this better than anybody. So in those following 2 minutes you said it's super important to clearly illustrate the solution. And we had this example, I think, when we were in LA, we had a bunch of companies, you two included, present. And one of the presenters, one of the founders, I thought, having known about his business in particular, just assumed that the judges in the audience understood the full kind of context of how the solution worked in the market. And I was amazed that this person in particular just skipped over like some of the key components of how the business works. So I'm curious about how you like to see solutions presented. Is it kind of like, hey, give me kind of the zoom out? Are we talking about software or hardware or a mix of the two? And then walk me through how it's used by the customer.
I mean, you just answered it, really. I mean, you got to clearly articulate what your product consists of, and that's important. But once you understand that, then you can talk about how that product solves the problem in the market. So they just have to go together. It's the basic product market fit. Like, is my product a good thing that's going to work for that? If my product is a great thing, but it doesn't really solve that well, something else will do it better, then like it's not a great product, or you have the wrong market or whatever. But yeah, so that's what I would say.
Cool. I imagine it would naturally come through. I mean, if you're presenting the problem, you should probably be providing the solution too. You don't just go there to pitch the problem.
Yeah.
So
well, the solution is everything. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
I have the solution, right?
Yeah. But generally, I mean, bottom line is setting up the problem and who has it before you get to the solution. I feel is a key kind of step.
Yeah.
Just in a storytelling format, right? You want to tell the story of, hey, here's what I saw, and now I'm fixing it with this particular software or product, and then showing it, right? I think this was going to your question that you may have asked earlier. How much stock as a judge do you put in the quality of the visual aspect of the story? If I can elaborate on your question.
Only to the extent that you demonstrate that you're disciplined when you're putting your presentation together. In other words, like your slides can't be too crowded. You can't have too much crap on there that you can't even read. It's got to be real simple and like, come on, you're a stallion. You're coming out there, and you want to present yourself being really concise, crisp. Your investors understand exactly after you've presented. They know exactly what you just told them, and so the visuals should be consistent with that. There's a lot of, I don't know if you teach slide decks, but I remember years ago, Guy Kawasaki had a really good on having a certain number of slides, only a certain number of lines in it. And that kind of stuff's very helpful because it's based upon many years of investor feedback, right? So why not go with it? And the other thing I would say is, again, people forget these little things. Think of where you're presenting and what will your slides look like at that location. Like, don't have weird colors that you can't see. I mean, what if the lighting's not real good?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what if you're in sunshine and like there's glare in there?
That's true.
If they can't see anything that you're showing, then oh, what's the deal?
Yeah.
I don't know how you solve everything, but I'm saying just have a plan that you need to be able to think on your feet. The best thing is prepare in advance and know the location, know what it's going to be like. That's why I was saying find out the rules. If you can show your product, if you have the opportunity, go to the room, see what it's like at that hour, look at the screen where it's going to be at. Walk back here and see how people are seeing it. I mean, this is due diligence. This is basic stuff that separates winners from losers.
Yeah.
So you want to get everything right. You might as well go and be prepared.
It's great tips. If you wanted to check out the resource Michael referenced earlier, that's Guy Kawasaki, Art of the Start, classic book in the startup literature canon that we share with our students at ASU, and invite you to check that out as well. But since Guy Kawasaki, there's been untold numbers of blog posts. If you just do a Google search on best pitch deck templates or examples of pitch decks, there's innumerable examples out there. Of course, I teach my version of it, and I'm pretty bullish on my version compared to others. But to Michael's point earlier, I just want to give all of you, because we know you're creative, right? As entrepreneurs, we know you've got a lot of imagination. So don't be shy, especially if you're confident, as you need to be, to break the mold and tell the story in the way that you truly feel is the right way to get it across. But to your point, Isaac, absolutely. If the audience is asking for financial projections and that's not in the template that Siebold provided to you within his class, you've got to put it in there, right? If nothing else, you've got those numbers in an addendum section of your slides or in your back pocket. Hey, I can follow up with those numbers. I have thought about that, and I'll share those with you afterward. So a lot of different ways to tackle this. Go ahead, Michael.
Concluding thoughts? I mean, one thing I was thinking of is, this is how I think of it, is we talk about your customer being your audience for your product and how you're solving that problem. But when you're pitching, the people in the audience, they have a problem. You know what their problem is? They want to give money to you, and they don't know who to give it to. So you need to make it easy for them to pick you versus someone else. So whether it's grant money, if it's an investor, I mean, you've got a great thing to tell them to help them with their problem. So make it easy for them. Tell them this is great. This is right up your alley. I'm the one you write the check to. So, but remember your audience is there because they're seeking you. Don't always think I'm seeking them. They're seeking you.
Wow.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So when you get up there, they're not just a bunch of lions that want to chew you apart. No, they're looking for you. You just need to say, here I am, here I am. So remember that.
Wow. That is a very compelling insight. So glad we heard you say that. I mean, it really does change the perspective. Because you're right. I think a lot of us go into those settings with the victim mentality of oh,
Exactly.
shucks.
Yeah, think of the judges. If I was investors, they got a bigger problem because they're trying to deal with real money.
Yeah.
But judges are sitting there and they're like, I got to pick somebody. There's all these companies and they're going to be telling me all this stuff. Make it easy for me.
Yeah.
Make it easy for me.
Great advice. And Isaac, thank you so much for coming back, being with us on How We Innovate. Michael and I really appreciate it. Zafira, you've been a long contributing member of this show throughout our season here this year. So thank you, Zafira. I really appreciate your time. And Michael, I think hopefully we're going to see these two again next week on stage,
right?
Presenting Thrively Foods and Food Tracks. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
And thanks, Michael, as
Thank
always.
you.
Appreciate your time.
Enjoyed it.
All right, so long, everybody. We'll see you next time on How We Innovate at Arizona State University.